In the heart of a quiet village tucked beneath the scorching sun of eastern Nigeria, there lived a woman named Sarah. She was the type of woman whose footsteps were feared more than the village thunder. Her husband was a quiet man, always away in the city chasing contracts, and her children? Raised in luxury but emptied of empathy. One Monday morning, a van pulled up in front of Sarah's compound. It was dusty, old, and carried nothing but a single sack bag and a small girl sitting silently in the back seat. Her name was Ada. No more than 9, with tired eyes that had seen too much for her tender age. Her hair was unevenly cut, her dress oversized and stained, and her feet bare. The woman who brought her was a relative of Sarah from a nearby town. "She will help you in the house," she had said, "and in return, you will send her to school." But deep inside, Sarah had no plans of schooling the child. To her, Ada was not a child. She was labor. Cheap and voiceless. As soon as the woman left, the tone changed. Ada was handed a broken bucket and sent to the stream before she could even sit down. No words of welcome. No food. No water. Just instructions. And when she returned late, because she missed the footpath on her way back, Sarah lashed her with a kiboko, her harsh voice echoing into the compound walls. From that day, Ada became the invisible shadow of the household. Before the first cock crowed, she was up, sweeping the compound, fetching water, washing clothes, and preparing the older children for school. The irony? The very school she once hoped she'd attend. Sarah's children treated Ada like dirt, just like their mother. They poured their unfinished food on her, scattered their clothes after dressing up, and laughed when she knelt on the floor, crying from exhaustion. The cook, the cleaner, the nanny, the gardener, Ada was everything but a child. In the evenings, Sarah's friends would come around for pepper soup and wine. She would sit under the mango tree in her compound, boasting about her discipline, saying things like, "That girl will thank me one day. I'm training her well." They would all nod, not knowing that Ada, with bleeding hands and sore knees, was behind the fence, trying to light firewood for the night meal. One day, Ada fell asleep while scrubbing the kitchen floor. She had worked all day under the sun and forgot to eat. Sarah found her there. Instead of pity, Sarah poured cold water on her and dragged her outside, shouting loud enough for the neighbors to hear. The villagers shook their heads. But no one dared say a word. After all, Sarah was a respected church leader. But behind closed doors, Ada was dying slowly, not just physically, but emotionally. She had no toys, no books, and no love. Her life had been reduced to a series of instructions, punishments, and survival. And yet, each time she looked into the sky at night, she whispered the same prayer, "God, let somebody see me." Just one person. Unknown to Sarah, that prayer had begun to echo beyond her compound. A neighbor, Mama Ajike, had started to notice. She had watched Ada from a distance, how the girl fetched water until her palms peeled, how she never went to. Days turned into weeks, and Ada's life became a cycle of endless work and pain. The compound, once full of laughter and life, now carried the heavy silence of a child crushed by burdens too big for her small frame. Every morning, before the sun kissed the red earth, Ada would rise, her bare feet meeting the cold floor of the kitchen as she prepared food for the household. Her fingers became cracked from washing countless plates, her arms bruised from carrying heavy buckets of water, and her back ached from endless sweeping. But no one noticed. No one cared. Sarah watched from the veranda, eyes cold and unyielding. If Ada dared to pause, even for a second, Sarah's voice would cut through the quiet like a whip. "You lazy girl. Work harder. Don't think I brought you here for your nonsense." Ada's heart sank with every word. Yet, even as the pain and humiliation piled up, she dared not speak a word. The village had taught her one cruel lesson: silence is survival. In the evenings, when the household sat around the fire sharing stories and laughter, Ada sat farthest from the flames, hidden in the shadows, her stomach empty and her soul weary. She listened as Sarah's children boasted of their school achievements, their bright futures, and their toys. Ada dreamed silently of joining them, to learn, to play, to be free. But freedom was a distant star, twinkling in the night sky, always visible but forever out of reach. One evening, Ada stumbled upon a small group of village children gathered under the ancient Irako tree. They sang songs of their ancestors, told tales of brave warriors and wise kings. Their faces shone with hope and joy. Ada longed to join but held back, afraid to be rejected. As the moon rose, casting silver light over the village, Ada whispered a prayer to Chinik, the creator, asking for strength, for a chance, for someone to see the girl hidden behind the chores and lashes. Unbeknownst to her, eyes were watching. Eyes that carried secrets and power. Eyes that would change Ada's story forever. The days grew heavier for Ada, but beneath the weight of her struggles, a quiet hope began to bloom, like the tiny green shoots that pushed through dry, cracked soil after the first rains. One afternoon, after an exhausting day of endless chores, Ada found herself wandering towards the edge of the village, drawn by the distant laughter of children playing near the old baobab tree. This baobab was no ordinary tree. In the village, it was said to hold the wisdom of ancestors, a place where the spirits whispered to those willing to listen. The children sat beneath its wide branches, their faces alight with joy and stories, their clothes patched but clean, their smiles genuine. Ada's heart ached as she watched from afar, yearning to belong to their world. She wished she could leave the harshness of Sarah's compound and step into their circle. As fate would have it, an elderly woman approached Ada quietly. She was Mama Ngozi, known in the village for her kindness and healing hands. With wrinkles carved deeply from years of laughter and hardship, Mama Ngozi saw more than just a tired child, she saw a spirit struggling to break free. Without a word, she beckoned Ada closer and offered her a small cup of palm wine, a rare comfort for a child. Ada accepted, her hands trembling, and for the first time in many months, she felt warmth, not just from the drink but from the gentle smile that met her eyes. Mama Ngozi's voice was soft, filled with the wisdom of many seasons. She spoke of courage, of strength found in the heart of the weakest, and of the power of hope. That day, under the protective shade of the baobab, Ada's tears finally came, not as a sign of defeat, but as a release. She cried for the loneliness, for the pain, and for the dream that still flickered inside her like a stubborn flame. Word of the little girl's plight began to spread quietly through the village. Neighbors who once turned their heads now whispered among themselves, questioning the harshness of Sarah and the silence of the family. But change in the village, as in life, moves slowly, like the river that carves its path through rock over many years. Ada's journey had only just begun. The nights in the village were meant to be times of rest, where the cicadas sang lullabies and the stars wove ancient stories across the sky. But for Ada, the darkness brought no peace. In the small room she was assigned, bare and cold, she lay awake, the echoes of Sarah's angry words still ringing in her ears. Her body bore marks hidden beneath her faded clothes, bruises that whispered of days filled with hard labor and harsh punishment. Each ache told a story Sarah refused to hear. Despite the pain, Ada clung to her small moments of joy, the cool water from the river, the soft songs Mama Ngozi sang to her in secret, and the hope that one day, her suffering would end. Sarah, meanwhile, grew more demanding. She believed that showing kindness to a servant was a weakness, a sign that the child could take advantage. In the harsh culture of pride and status, Sarah's reputation depended on the perfect image of her household. To admit fault or show mercy was unthinkable. As the village watched quietly, some began to question, was this cruelty right? Was it the way things had to be? Among the elders, a council met beneath the great Irako tree. They spoke of tradition, respect, and justice, words heavy with meaning. They remembered that long ago, their ancestors had cared for one another, treating even the smallest among them with dignity. But time and influence had twisted these values. The old ways were being lost, replaced by pride, selfishness, and silence. One morning, as Ada fetched water from the stream, she overheard whispers of a festival, a day when the village would come together to honor the spirits and seek blessings for the harvest. It was a day of joy, unity, and forgiveness. Ada dared to dream. Maybe, on that day, the village could heal. Maybe her story could be heard. But the road to healing was tangled with shadows, and Sarah's anger burned like fire ready to consume anything in its path. The day of the festival arrived like a burst of color after a long dry season. The village was transformed. Men, women, and children adorned in vibrant fabrics, their faces painted with patterns passed down through generations. The air was thick with the sweet scent of kola nuts, burning incense, and freshly harvested yams. Drums thundered in the distance, calling everyone to the central square beneath the ancient irako tree, the heart of the village. The festival was a time to honor the ancestors, to thank the spirits for their protection, and to ask for blessings for the coming year. Ada, though weary and worn, was drawn to the celebration. For a few precious hours, she felt the joy that had been absent from her life for so long. She watched as the dancers moved with grace and power, their feet pounding rhythms older than memory. But Sarah was not in the mood for celebration. To her, Ada was only a servant, a shadow in her perfect home, not to mingle or smile among the free children. She scolded Ada fiercely when she found her near the festivities, dragging her away by the arm and warning her to stay out of sight. Yet, the villagers' eyes had begun to see differently. Whispers spread about the mistreatment of the little girl. Some remembered their own childhoods, others their ancestors' teachings of compassion and justice. That night, the village elders gathered again, their voices heavy with concern. They spoke of balance, how a society must care for all its members or risk falling into darkness. Meanwhile, Ada lay beneath the open sky, watching the stars twinkle like tiny lanterns. Her heart ached with a silent wish, that one day, she could live without fear, without pain. That the village she called home could become a place where children like her were treasured. Unbeknownst to Ada, her silent cries had awakened something deep within the community, a stirring of conscience and courage that would soon ripple through the village walls. In the days that followed the festival, a subtle but powerful change began to sweep through the village. The whispers about Ada's plight grew louder, no longer confined to hushed voices behind closed doors. The elders, once silent, started to speak openly about the importance of kindness and justice, values deeply rooted in their culture but forgotten in recent times. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the dusty paths, a meeting was held beneath the sprawling branches of the irako tree. The villagers gathered, a mix of young and old, men and women, united by a growing sense of purpose. Mama Ngozi, with her weathered hands and gentle eyes, stood before them and told the story of the ancestors, how they cared for the weak, protected the vulnerable, and believed that true strength came from compassion. Her words stirred hearts. Mothers who had turned a blind eye began to question their silence. Fathers who prized reputation above all else felt the weight of their responsibility. Even Sarah's neighbors, once afraid to intervene, found the courage to speak. Back in Sarah's compound, the atmosphere grew tense. Sarah noticed the shifting tides, the way neighbors now glanced with suspicion, how her children whispered and cast uneasy looks at Ada. For the first time, her authority felt challenged. Ada, sensing the change, dared to hold her head a little higher. She still bore the scars of her suffering, but the hope that had been planted beneath the baobab tree now blossomed inside her. Slowly, a village that had once accepted cruelty began to remember the strength of its roots, a strength born not of power or pride, but of love, respect, and unity. The village's quiet transformation was not without struggle. Change, like the wind that bends but does not break the mighty irako tree, came with resistance. Sarah, clinging fiercely to her pride and control, pushed back hard against the whispers growing louder around her. One day, the village headman, a respected elder named Chief Ease, visited Sarah's compound. His presence was calm but firm. He spoke of the village's traditions, the sacred duty to protect children and uphold justice. He reminded Sarah that power without mercy was empty, and that the community would no longer tolerate cruelty. Sarah's face twisted with anger and shame, but deep inside, a seed of doubt was planted. The villagers who once avoided her compound now stood their ground, emboldened by the headman's words. Meanwhile, Ada found strength in the community's support. With Mama Ngozi's encouragement, she began to speak, not loudly, but with steady resolve. She told her story to the elders, to the women's group, and to anyone who would listen. Her voice, though soft, carried the weight of truth. It pierced the silence that had bound her for so long. The village rallied around her. Neighbors brought food, children invited her to play, and teachers spoke of finding ways to get Ada into school. Sarah, confronted by this growing tide, faced a choice: continue down the path of cruelty and isolation, or open her heart and embrace the village's call for compassion. The story of Ada became a mirror for the village, a reminder that the smallest voices could awaken the greatest change. As the days passed, the village's embrace of Ada grew stronger, like the gentle rain nourishing parched earth. The elders, inspired by her courage, arranged for her enrollment in the village school, a humble building where the lessons of reading and writing blended with the wisdom of community values. Ada's first day at school was like stepping into a new world. The classroom buzzed with the laughter of children, the scratch of chalk on blackboards, and the warm smiles of teachers eager to guide her. For the first time, she was not just a servant, she was a learner, a dreamer, a child with a future. Sarah watched from a distance, her heart a complex tangle of pride, guilt, and something like hope. The walls she had built around herself began to crack as she witnessed Ada's transformation. But the journey was not easy. Ada had to catch up on lost years, face the teasing of other children, and overcome the shadows of her past. Yet, with each step forward, she grew stronger, her spirit shining brighter than ever. The village, too, learned valuable lessons. They remembered that true strength lies in lifting one another up, that no child should carry burdens meant for adults, and that healing begins with compassion. The story of Ada spread beyond the village, inspiring neighboring communities to re-examine their treatment of children and servants. In time, Sarah began to change as well. The hard edges of her heart softened. She learned to see Ada not as a servant but as a child, a precious life deserving of love and care. The journey from cruelty to kindness was long and winding, but the village stood together, united in hope and renewal. As Ada continued to thrive in school, the village witnessed the power of healing, not just for the child but for the entire community. The elders organized regular meetings to discuss how to protect children's rights and promote kindness within homes. Sarah, once harsh and unyielding, began to take part in these discussions. It was not easy for her, old habits die slowly, and pride still whispered in her ears. But seeing Ada's progress, and the community's support, stirred something deep inside. She sought forgiveness, not just from Ada but from herself. This journey toward humility was as much about healing her own wounded spirit as it was about making amends. Ada, in turn, showed remarkable grace. Despite the pain she endured, she forgave Sarah quietly, understanding that true freedom comes with letting go of bitterness. The village slowly transformed. Houses once filled with silence and fear now echoed with laughter and shared meals. The old stories told under the baobab tree now included lessons of courage, empathy, and redemption. Ada's story became a beacon, a testament that change is possible, that even the darkest past can give way to a brighter future when hearts open. And so, beneath the same red earth and golden sun, the village began to heal, one act of kindness at a time. The story of Ada closes not with a triumphant shout, but with a quiet truth whispered through the village winds, a truth as old as the Irako tree and as vital as the rivers that nourish the land. Ada's journey from silence to voice, from pain to healing, teaches us that every child deserves dignity, care, and the chance to dream. No child is born to suffer in silence, no heart too small to hold hope. Sarah's transformation reminds us that pride and cruelty can trap even the strongest among us, but courage, humility, and forgiveness hold the power to break chains and build bridges. In African culture, the concept of Ubuntu teaches us that I am because we are. Our humanity is bound together, and the way we treat the least among us reflects the soul of the entire community. When we open our eyes and hearts to the suffering of others, especially the most vulnerable, we do not diminish ourselves. We become fuller, richer, stronger. The village learned that silence is not always peace, sometimes it is complicity. Speaking up, standing together, and choosing kindness over cruelty shapes the future for everyone. Ada's story is a call to all of us, to see beyond status and power, to recognize the sacredness of every life, and to remember that true strength grows from love. May we carry this lesson in our hearts, like a sacred fire passed from generation to generation, illuminating the path toward a kinder, more just world. As Ada's story came to a close, the village elders and parents gathered to reflect on the lessons learned. In the flickering glow of evening fires, mothers and fathers shared words of advice that would guide future generations. "Children are gifts from the ancestors," a father said, his voice steady and wise. "It is our duty to nurture them with love, to protect their dreams, and to teach them respect, not just for others, but for themselves." A mother nodded in agreement. We must remember that how we treat the smallest in our homes shapes who they become. Kindness is not weakness, it is the foundation of a strong family and a strong community. Parents spoke of the importance of teaching humility and empathy from an early age, reminding their children that every person, no matter their station, deserves dignity. They encouraged families to listen deeply to the voices of their children, to create homes where silence is not born of fear, but of peace. "Raise your children to be warriors of kindness," one elder advised. In a world full of struggle, it is compassion that will light their way. The advice resonated deeply, weaving itself into the fabric of the village's daily life. Parents committed to nurturing their children's hearts as much as their minds, knowing that love and respect build a legacy far richer than wealth or power. Ada's journey became more than a story, it became a living promise, that no child's tears would fall unnoticed, and no voice would be silenced again. The village embraced the truth that every home, every parent, holds the power to shape a future where children like Ada can flourish. Moral of the story: parents and communities must nurture children with love, respect, and empathy. Teaching kindness and listening to children's voices protects the soul of the family and the strength of the community. True courage is found in compassion and humility. Please like and subscribe to our channel, and also don't forget to tell us the country you are watching from.